Stu Taylor. Joining me right now is Angus Baker. He's the president of Breitling Royalty Funds, and great to have you with us.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Before I begin this, let me just ask you, how are you enjoying this High Alpha Energy Investment Conference, the first one?
It's my first one. It also happens to be my first trip to New York City, so I am like a kid in a candy store.
Oh, okay.
I'm born and bred in Texas, and where most oil men are, and this is my first trip, and I'm having a great time. I got to see Grand Central Station, Wall Street, the World Trade Center site, and ride the subway. So far I've had a wonderful time, and I look forward to coming back.
It's great having you. I'm not a New Yorker, but it's on behalf of the New Yorkers, I'll say welcome. How do oil and gas royalties serve as an inflation hedge?
Well, yes, they do. They do very much so. As a matter of fact, in an inflationary period where the price of goods and services rise, typically oil goes with that, the price of the barrel. And royalties being a income stream based solely on the gross production, not the net, typically means when the price of the barrel goes up, so does your income. So, for instance, me being a father of 3, 5, 6, 7-year-old, when inflation hits and milk goes up and eggs go up and diapers go up and even gasoline goes up,
everything is affected.
My royalty check goes up in about the same proportion or percentage to what the inflation does, if not a little bit more. So, at the end of the month, I get a little higher check than I'm used to during that time.
All right. Well, I hope you're coping with it well.
I'm doing well,
yeah,
thanks.
All right. How is direct ownership in oil and gas royalties different than a publicly traded royalty trust?
Good question. It's probably the most common question I get, because people love to invest in the market. And there are numerous royalty trusts that have been somewhat successful in the market, but there's two main reasons. The two main differences between direct title and publicly traded. Number one, in a direct title investment, your principal is not subject to the systemic risk of the market. For instance, over the last 10 years, there's been twice in that 10-year period where we all woke up as Americans one morning and they told us that half of the value of our stock market was gone. That all of a sudden now takes a period of time, 1, 2, 3 years, for that to recover. In the direct title business, we're not in that system, so the principal stays intact even when those external risks happen. The other major difference between a royalty trust and a direct title is that a direct title is paid off of the gross production of an oil and gas well. And in our properties at Breitling, where we give thousands of properties on hundreds of thousands of acres, all we have to do is evaluate the gross production of each and every well and what will happen in the future. A royalty trust is typically a landlocked position by one operator who is using that vehicle to raise the capital to do the development. So that dividend that they pay is not necessarily tied to the gross production. It serves more like a bond than it does what direct title does.
Angus, for purposes of educating all of us watching this, what are the main differences between working and royalty interest? Working, of course, related to drilling.
Working interest, there are really four. Because we like to think the working interest is a wealth creation play, we like to think that the royalty interest is a wealth preservation play. So in the world of preservation, risk is important on top of the yield, but most importantly, we focus on risk of principal. For instance, a working interest folks will burden 100% of the cost of drilling a well. After that well is producing, they will pay the royalty owners typically at 20–25% of each and every drop of oil that comes from the ground. But a royalty owner will not participate in the cost of drilling or maintaining any current production or future production on the property. The second is liability. although there are layers and layers of insurance in place on the working interest side, it's common for there to be EPA or tort issues that happen in the oil patch, and all that burden will fall on the working interest owners. Royalty interest owners burden zero of the liability. So once again, your principal's not at risk. The other major difference is the royalty owners, the working interest owners will receive 100% tax advantage in hopes that their investment will create an income stream. As far as a royalty owner goes, we already have an existing income stream that's very, very predictable. So we like to think that a lot of the risk is gone. We still have a couple, but not near as much as the working interest side. So those are three of the major differences between working interest and royalty interest.
Thanks for this education. Thanks for bringing that education and Texas hospitality right here to the High Alpha Energy Investment Conference in New York.